What's up, everyone? Today we're diving into one of automotive history's greatest mysteries, a V8 engine so smooth it made Cadillacs jealous, built by a company you've probably never heard of. In 1930, Oakland Motor Company created what might have been the most advanced V8 of its era, then vanished before anyone realized what they'd accomplished. This is the incredible story of engineering brilliance, terrible timing, and the smoothest V8 that history forgot. Let's get into it. Turning point for America. The stock market had crashed just months before, unemployment was rising, and families were tightening their belts. But in the automotive world, something exciting was happening despite the economic turmoil. The V8 engine was finally becoming accessible to ordinary Americans. Until the late 1920s, V8s were luxury items, reserved for Cadillacs, Lincolns, and other high-end marques. Most Americans drove four-cylinder cars, or if they were lucky, a smooth inline-six. But Henry Ford had changed everything in 1932 with his flathead V8, promising V8 power for the price of a four-cylinder car. The problem was, most V8s of this era were rough, crude affairs. They vibrated like paint mixers. Engine mounts would crack. Dashboard components would rattle loose. Customers accepted this as the price of V8 power after all. What did you expect from 8 pistons firing in a compact space? General Motors was watching this V8 revolution unfold from their Detroit headquarters. They had Cadillac for luxury V8s, but their mass-market brands Chevrolet, Oakland, Oldsmobile, and Buick were still relying on 6-cylinder engines. GM's executives knew they needed a V8 strategy for the common man, but they wanted to do it right. They wanted to build a V8 that didn't shake your teeth loose. The question was, which division would take on this challenge? Chevrolet was focused on low-cost transportation. Buick and Oldsmobile had their premium inline sixes locked down. That left Oakland GM's forgotten middle child to swing for the fences with something truly revolutionary. Number 2, who was Oakland? Oakland Motor Car Company began life in 1907 in Pontiac, Michigan. Founded by Edward Murphy, a carriage maker who saw the future rolling on 4 wheels. By 1909, General Motors had absorbed Oakland as part of William Durant's empire-building spree, slotting it into GM's pricing hierarchy between Chevrolet and Oldsmobile. For most of its existence, Oakland was the automotive equivalent of middle management. Competent, reliable, but rarely exciting. They built solid cars for solid people. Doctors, shop owners, successful farmers. Oakland owners weren't trying to impress anyone. They just wanted dependable transportation with a touch of respectability. But by the late 1920s, Oakland found itself in trouble. Chevrolet was moving upmarket with better styling and features. Oldsmobile was moving down with more affordable models. Oakland was being squeezed from both sides, and their sales showed it. In 1929, they sold just over 40,000 cars respectable, but not enough to justify their existence in GM's increasingly streamlined empire. Oakland's engineers and executives knew they were fighting for their brand's survival. They needed something dramatic, something that would put them back on the map. Their answer was ambitious. They would build the smoothest, most refined V8 engine in the moderate price class. Not just competitive with other V8s better than engines costing twice as much. It was a moonshot that would either save Oakland or destroy it. Number 3, the vibration fighting beast. The 1930 Oakland 5.8 didn't look revolutionary from the outside. At 344 cubic inches, it was reasonably sized for its era. The 85 horsepower output was competitive, but not groundbreaking. Cast iron block, flathead design, all fairly conventional for 1930. But Oakland's engineers had obsessed over one thing that other manufacturers treated as an afterthought: vibration. Every V8 engine creates vibration. It's physics. 8 pistons firing in sequence create forces that shake the entire power plant. Most manufacturers just bolted the engine down tight and hoped for the best. Oakland took a different approach. They started with the crankshaft, carefully balancing not just the reciprocating masses, but also accounting for the rotational forces created by the connecting rods. This wasn't new science. Racing engines had used balanced crankshafts for years, but it was expensive and time-consuming to implement in mass production. Next came the engine mounts. Instead of rigid metal brackets, Oakland developed a sophisticated mounting system that used rubber isolation pads and carefully tuned resonance frequencies. The engine was allowed to move slightly, but only in ways that canceled out vibration rather than transmitted it to the chassis. The firing order received special attention too. While most V8s use conventional firing sequences that prioritize smooth power delivery, Oakland experimented with orders that reduced vibration harmonics. This sometimes meant slightly less smooth power, but dramatically less shake. Some accounts suggest Oakland even experimented with early harmonic dampers, weighted devices attached to the crankshaft that would absorb specific vibration frequencies. These were cutting-edge technology, typically reserved for expensive luxury cars. The result was remarkable. Contemporary road tests describe the Oakland 5.8 as uncannily smooth and quieter than most sixes. Motor Magazine claimed it was the smoothest V8 they had ever tested under $2,000. One journalist famously wrote that riding in an Oakland 5.8 was like sitting in a luxury liner, while other V8s felt like riding a freight train. But this refinement came at a cost. The balanced crankshafts required precision machining. The sophisticated engine mounts were expensive to manufacture. The development time had stretched on for months longer than planned. Oakland had created an engineering masterpiece, but at a price that was bleeding the company dry. Number 4. The market reality. Oakland's V8 launched into one of the worst automotive markets in American history. The Great Depression wasn't just affecting luxury car buyers, it was devastating the middle-class customers who formed Oakland's core market. Doctors were seeing fewer patients. Small business owners were struggling to stay afloat. The very people who would have appreciated Oakland's smooth V8 couldn't afford any new car, let alone one with premium engineering. But the economic timing wasn't Oakland's only problem. The brand suffered from a fundamental identity crisis. Customers shopping for V8 power typically wanted one of two things: either maximum performance for their dollar or maximum prestige. Oakland's engine delivered neither. Ford's flathead V8, introduced in 1932, was crude and rough, but it was also cheap and powerful. Hot rodders loved it. Working-class buyers appreciated the value. Ford positioned their V8 as democratic power, a people's engine. At the other end of the spectrum, Cadillac and Lincoln offered V8s that were smooth and refined, but they came wrapped in luxury bodywork with prestigious badges. Buyers paying extra for smoothness wanted everyone to know they could afford the best. Oakland fell into the dreaded middle ground. Their V8 was too expensive to compete with Ford on value, but the Oakland badge didn't carry enough prestige to justify Cadillac-level engineering. It was the automotive equivalent of buying a perfectly tailored suit from an unknown designer. GM's internal politics didn't help either. Resources were being directed towards Chevrolet's upcoming V8 program, and Buick was developing their own premium V8. Oakland's sophisticated engine was seen as duplicating efforts across too many divisions. The writing was on the wall by 1931. Oakland sold fewer than 22,000 cars that year, a death spiral for any major manufacturer. Number 5. The end of Oakland. In 1932, General Motors made a decision that would erase one of their most innovative engines from automotive history. Oakland was dead, but the factory in Pontiac, Michigan would live on under a new nameplate, Pontiac, named after the city where Oakland cars had been built. This wasn't just a simple rebadging. GM's executives had decided that Oakland's premium engineering approach was the wrong strategy for the Depression-era market. Pontiac would be positioned as an affordable performance brand, more car for your money rather than better engineering at any cost. The sophisticated Oakland V8 was deemed too expensive and complex for Pontiac's new mission. Instead, Pontiac would share engines with other GM divisions. Initially a straight 8 from Oldsmobile, and later V8s developed cooperatively across multiple brands. Oakland's final cars rolled off the production line in the summer of 1931, though they were still sold as 1932 models. The tooling for the balanced crankshafts was scrapped. The engine mount technology was shelved. The vibration-fighting innovations that had cost Oakland so much to develop were simply abandoned. A few Oakland V8s survive today, mostly in the hands of collectors who appreciate their unusual smoothness. But the engine's technological innovations died with the brand. GM would eventually develop smooth V8s again, but they would rediscover these solutions independently decades later, rather than building on Oakland's pioneering work. In the ruthless calculus of Depression-era business, Oakland's engineering excellence had become a liability rather than an asset. Number 6, Battle of the Viejas. To truly understand how remarkable Oakland's V8 was, we need to compare it to what else was available in 1930. The V8 landscape was brutal and unforgiving. Most engines prioritized power over refinement, and customers had learned to accept bone-rattling vibration as the price of 8-cylinder performance. Ford's Model A had a smooth 4-cylinder, but Henry Ford was already plotting his flathead V8 revolution. When it arrived in 1932, Ford's V8 made 65 horsepower and cost around $460 for the entire car. It was rough, crude, and absolutely perfect for its mission, putting V8 power in every driveway in America. Hot rodders would eventually make it legendary, but smooth it was not. At the luxury end, Cadillac's 353 cubic inch V8 made 95 horsepower and was reasonably refined, but it came in cars costing $2,500 and up, nearly 6 times the price of a basic Ford. Lincoln's V8 was similarly powerful and expensive. These were engines for doctors and bank presidents, not shop owners and farmers. Oakland's 344 cubic inch V8, making 85 horsepower in cars priced around $1,200, occupied a sweet spot that nobody else was targeting. It offered 90% of Cadillac's smoothness at half the price, while delivering more refinement than Ford could dream of. Contemporary road tests consistently rated Oakland's V8 as smoother than Buick's straight 8, which was considered the benchmark for mid-price smoothness. The closest competitor was probably Oldsmobile's straight 8, but even that well-regarded engine couldn't match the Oakland V8's uncanny lack of vibration. One automotive journalist of the era wrote that the Oakland idles so smoothly, you have to check the tachometer to confirm it's running. But here's the cruel irony. Oakland's superior engineering made their cars more expensive to build than their GM siblings, while their badge carried less prestige than the competition. They had created the Goldilocks Farm 8, not too rough, not too expensive, but just right for a market that was about to disappear entirely. Number 7. What made it special? Looking back nearly a century later, Oakland's V8 represents a fascinating might-have-been in automotive history. The engine incorporated technologies that wouldn't become standard in mass-market V8s for another 20 years. The balanced crankshaft technology Oakland pioneered would eventually appear in premium engines from Cadillac and other luxury brands in the 1950s. The sophisticated engine mounting systems wouldn't become common until the 1960s, when NVH noise, vibration, and harshness became a key competitive battleground. Even the harmonic damper technology that Oakland may have experimented with wouldn't appear in mainstream engines until the muscle car era of the 1960s, when high-performance V8s needed such devices to survive. Oakland's engineers had essentially created a 1950s-level engine in 1930. They understood that vibration was the enemy of refinement, and they attacked it with systematic engineering rather than just accepting it as inevitable. This philosophy would eventually become standard throughout the industry, But Oakland was decades ahead of the curve. The tragedy is that their timing was exactly wrong. In 1930, the market wanted cheap transportation, not engineering excellence. By the 1950s, when American consumers were ready to pay for smoothness and refinement, Oakland was long gone, and their innovations had been forgotten. Some automotive historians argue that Oakland's approach influenced later GM engine development, even if the specific technologies were abandoned. The corporate memory of having built an exceptionally smooth V8 may have pushed GM engineers to prioritize refinement in later designs. But that's speculation. What we know for certain is that Oakland briefly built one of the most advanced V8 engines of its era, then disappeared before the market was ready to appreciate what they had accomplished. And that's the story of Oakland's incredible V8, a masterpiece of engineering that arrived at exactly the wrong moment in history. Sometimes the best technology doesn't win, and Oakland's smooth as silk V8 proves that timing is everything in the automotive world. What other forgotten innovations are hiding in automotive history? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thanks for watching this deep dive into one of Detroit's most fascinating what-ifs.